wild guesses from the audience on what this number is? Actually, how much is also this number? Sorry? I hope. What else? How much is this number? Can you guys make out?
This is 250 million.
250 billion, okay? Somebody said that?
Million.
Yeah. It's 250 million? Okay. So there are 3 zeros missing here, my fault. 250 billion is the number of lines of code that gets written every year in the world. Large number, right? How many of these lines of code do you think are useful? Any guesses? David? So I don't know the answer either. The objective was just to get all of your attention with a very large number. So let's get started. A little bit about the organization I come from. So I'm part of the OLX group. We're a marketplace helping buyers and sellers buy and sell almost everything. The keyword here is almost. We're a global organization present in a lot of countries, serving a lot of users, offices in a lot of places where a bunch of people are trying to solve some real customer problems. A little bit about me. I'm a typical product guy. I like using logic quite a lot. I'm learning how to keep things more and more simple. And on the personal front, I like reading and playing a little bit of squash every now and then. So this is the topic I wanted to talk to you guys about today. But as I was putting together my thoughts, also this presentation, I figured that this is not really intuitive to understand very easily, right? So I've changed it just a little bit. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how you can fail fast, but also refine your concepts early and save. Let me explain that a little bit. So a bit of context before I get into this. I'm a digital product manager. Most of the product development I've done has been software-oriented products. So you'll see a hint of that and a context of that in most of the information I bring forth. So this is a typical product management process, starting off with the idea, converting it into a concept, building a prototype, getting it into development, testing it out, launching it, and then finally scaling it. Yeah? How does it look when we map it out on the kind of effort it takes at each step? So as you see, the effort starts going exponentially up, especially when we start hitting our development stages. Yeah? And when I think of failing fast, what I interpret this is that taking multiple ideas through this entire process really fast in a specific period of time. However, is there another way to look at it? Can we also refine ideas at each stage? What we're trying to do here is reduce our chances of failing at a later stage and reducing all the costs that we might incur because of that not working out. So at each stage, what you're probably looking at is figuring out, hey, what's working well, what's not, and what are still some open questions which could get answered, let's say, in the later phases. Are you guys with me so far? Okay. A very simple way to do this and to incorporate this is just have appropriate checkpoints all along this product development process. Yeah. And what I'm going to tell you guys today is how to embed these checkpoints in a very practical way. So guys, pay very close attention. This one's really important. All you need is just one simple thing to embed all these checkpoints into your process, which is this. Okay, I see a few laughs, some confused faces. Don't you guys agree this will help? Who agrees this will help? Yeah, okay. I see most of the guys raising their hands for some reason. I think it will help. There's nothing like a cold one when you specifically have to go through all of this. Huh? But coincidentally, something that I've developed as a hack for myself and as a simple framework that I use to run to this refinement and checkpoint process sounds pretty similar. So it starts off by getting brutally honest feedback from people who you are close to. Getting some initial reactions from key stakeholders who are involved in this idea, refining the product or the idea with the users themselves, and finally analysis and iterations from action on the ground on the product. Yeah. And for today, I'll take you through a story of how we used this BIRA framework in one of our projects at OLX. Okay. But before we get to that, before we start picking up BIRA, any wild guess from the audience on what I'm trying to hint here or what this means? Anybody does this look familiar to anyone? Yeah, Thagat? Excellent. Thank you so much. So this is a very famous quote by Theodore Levitt, where he says people are not looking for quarter-inch drills; they're actually looking for quarter-inch holes. So if you figure out the essence, what Theodore Levitt was trying to talk about is figuring out the root cause of the problem that you're really going after for the user. One could still argue that Theodore Levitt could have gone down that path and said it's actually not the quarter-inch hole, but the painting on the wall that they're looking at. And we could continue to do this exercise of keep going to figure out what is the real root cause of the problem you're trying to solve for a user. Yeah? And this is something really important, and I want to stress on this because what I've noticed or observed in my experience, this is a part of product management that often gets overlooked, at times assumed that we know the problem that we are going to solve for our users. It makes sense for us as entrepreneurs, founders, product managers to spend ample time in really getting to the root cause of the problem we want to solve for our users. So coming to our story, our quarter-inch hole was on the OLX product. The specific area that we were trying to solve a problem was the chat experience, which essentially is helping buyers and sellers talk to each other. The specific user base here was our car dealers. So a lot of car dealers use our platform. They pay us a bunch of money as well, and they're really important consumers for us. So we wanted to solve a problem for them. The problem was actually very simple. They did not like chat. They did not like it at all. The reason was they said, hey, I get really stupid people from chat. They are lowballing quite a bit. And just to manage the sheer load of numbers that come through chat, it's just not the kind of effort I want to put in. But when we spoke to people on the other side, which are buyers, we got a reverse answer where they actually were liking chat quite a bit. They say, hey, it protects my privacy and convenience, but there are times when I also don't get a response. So if you see, we are trying to draw some sort of a connection here, and maybe solving one side of the problem could end up solving the other side of the problem as well. Yeah? Yeah. Am I making sense so far? Yeah? Cool. I'm going to leave this on for a few seconds for you guys to observe, and anybody in the audience can prompt on what they see or what they believe this is. So this came out as in some of our user researches. So can you guys just observe and see, can anybody guess what this is? Sorry? Okay, yeah, that's correct. So yeah, so this is a notebook this is a page from a dealer's notebook, and these pages actually came up quite a bit when we did our research in multiple dealers, which also gave us a estimate of the size of the problem. So there's a very interesting pattern. So basically, our platform is not allowing the dealers to do that. So they figured out a hack just to do that. If you see, there are these very interesting patterns. So he's trying to figure out who's the buyer, contact number, user preferences, even the quality of a particular person, and what he's supposed to do next. And yeah, this was a great inspiration for us to figure out how we end up solving the problem that we set out. And we'll call that the OLX problem. Starting point, nothing too complex. So this is the inbox experience that we offer to all our users currently. Very WhatsAppy in its look and feel and experience. This is where we were starting off with. Okay, we are now in the process of starting to pick up our bira. So a question to the audience: how many of us get ideas in the shower? Okay, most of us do. Excellent. So the intent of this particular framework is to make sure that these ideas also make it out of the shower. The other intent, however, and this is for the techies, David, here, is to also make sure that they don't make it out of the shower directly onto the developer's desk. Yeah? We need to make sure that we're figuring out something in the middle. Yeah? So this section is all about getting some brutally honest feedback, and brutally honest feedback from people who are close to, significant others, other product colleagues, family, probably friends having some context of the problem you're going after. All you need to do is just talk about the idea at this particular stage. I, as a digital product manager, like to bring things to life sometimes, so I'll sketch up something really rough on a pen and a paper and just show it. What essentially you're trying to do, you're trying to be courageous when you're talking about these ideas, super open to feedback, and also trying to always correlate it back to the original problem we started off to solve in the first place. Okay? So let's pull up our OLX problem and give you an instance of how we got this brutally honest feedback. So this is, so one of the ideas was, hey, let's forget this long list of WhatsApp experience buyers. Let's widgetize this entire experience. So if you see, we have these sort of 3 widgets, where the first widget is based, it's based on the status of the lead. So these are all the new guys that have come to you. the ones that you're actively conversing with, the unread which have been lying around for a while, and so on and so forth. So this was the idea that we sort of started to get some feedback around. Some kinds of feedback that we got. Hey, so we were definitely onto something when we started to figure that we should attach a status to each lead where it's headed. I think one feedback came out was, will it be difficult to really search? Because if a person moves from one widget to the other widget and you've also changed the UI, how difficult will it be for me to retain that context? And there was an open question also around, hey, this word active, while it's not fairly intuitive to understand what this really means and what will qualify as active. So just as example of what we did at this stage. Moving on to the initial reactions, and again, this one's a little bit for the techies in the house. Every time a product manager, founder, entrepreneur comes and tells you, hey, I thought of an idea last night, let's start developing, point him to a Bira, okay? So at this particular stage, we're trying to get initial reactions from some key stakeholders. Tech people, UX guys, business people who are close to the problem, as well as analytics guys, yeah? You could also say that we're getting initial reactions from market, in which competitive research of trying to understand how competitors are trying to solve the same problem could be taken into account. What you're looking to get out of this stage, you're looking to get out what are the technical challenges that will come when we start implementing this. What are the UX roadblocks we are bound to hit when we think of this? Practicality of actually executing this on the ground. Can we prioritize and break this large idea into smaller MVPs? And maybe a guesstimated impact of what problem it could actually solve for the users. You guys with me so far? Okay, so let's pull up our OLX problem back up. One of the concepts that we tested at the initial reactions, or got the initial reactions, was for, hey, forget all this long list of leads, why don't we just show ads? Hey, so car dealer selling 50 ads, it will be 50 rows, each showing the number of leads and some information there, and then you can play around and figure out from there. Some initial reactions we got. So the clubbing by ads was interesting, and everybody intuitively understood it. We still need to do a little bit of tweaking is what we could gather. From the tech side, expectations were clear. Major architectural changes involved the moment we start thinking of this, because the way we've made it earlier is very different. And there was also a very interesting question around how do we maintain the real-timeness. So if you look at a WhatsApp screen, the inbox is a super real-time page, right? Messages keep on coming and going, and the page sort of readjusts itself, all of that. How do you maintain that real-time experience in this that you're talking about? So that was a question too. Okay, refinements. This is the stage I love a lot, and any user researchers in the house, this is very close to what you guys do. And a question again to the group: how many times have we gone ahead with an idea without showing it even to one user? I've done that. So this stage is all about that. We need to take these ideas and solutions to the users, and multiple times if necessary. How do you do that? Prototypes, and extremely dirty prototypes, starting off from dirty paper made wireframes to actually a little bit more evolved prototypes using some UX tools will help. What you're largely looking to get out of here is this somewhat going to solve the problem for the user that you started off to solve in the first place? Is the solution that you've built understandable? Can people relate to the solution that you're talking about? And if you have winning concepts, or if you have multiple concepts, which of them could be the winning concepts of the lot? Yeah. As long as possible, try and maintain the user's natural environment to make sure that unbiased feedback comes through. Okay? Are you guys with me so far? Another exercise? No? Yes? Okay. Okay, pulling up our OLX problem back up. So this was one of the things we took for some refinement feedback from the users. So again, just to tell you what it is, it's basically clubbing the leads by ad and also showing some additional information here. Yeah, and some feedback we got from the users themselves. These are car dealers now. So phone and offer definitely was helpful because it helped them judge the seriousness of a lead that's coming to them. It did look cluttered. It was quite overwhelming to see all this information thrown up front on this page. And they were not very sure why there are only 2 leads per ad here and what these 2 are, XYZ. Yeah. So moving on to the last one. So what's happened up till now? We've we've gone through a BIR refinement. We've actually put this through development as part of an MVP, and we're now going to launching it to our alpha and beta users. No matter how small, big a product launch, always have a GTM plan. Always have a go-to-market plan of how we're going to communicate this to our users. Also, how we're going to measure whether this is successful at all or not. And the other thing, since a lot of these initial product launches are going to be to a handful of users, small set, it's really important to figure out the channels of getting qualitative feedback, because that is where you'll figure out what's it doing for our users. Broadly and very fundamentally, what you take away from this particular part is, hey, does it make sense to continue on moving with this idea, or let's stop here and really rethink? Yeah. Pulling up our OLX problem. So just to give you guys an idea, this is an example of the GTM that we did on the ground with car dealers and markets in Delhi NCR. We actually took this and showed them, hey, what is this product new feature is all about. And there are multiple things that you can do. I'll just explain what this is. So this is again the re-architected inbox that we did, clubbing ads by leads. Some of the key features that we had here was, hey, you can also see additional information up front, which is helping these dealers make some quick decisions. If a dealer wants to look at, let's say, only the new leads from yesterday, or the unread ones, or the ones he's marked important or follow up, he can just use one of those quick filters on top. And also, rather than going into each and every conversation or lead, I can take some quick actions on the list itself. Yeah. So this is where we reached with our Bira framework. Just to recap and just to run you guys through what we did here. So we used this Bira framework to constantly refine our ideas to make sure that the chances of us failing at a later stage got reduced, and we ended up saving some costs. If at any point in time as a team we would have taken a call to say, let's start with a particular idea which was not fairly refined at that point in time, there were higher chances that we would have required more rework to actually get it back to what users want it to be. I'm going to preempt a question because there are a lot of startups, founders, people doing consumer facing products, is that, hey, we don't have the time to do all of this. You guys are large organizations, take a bunch of time to release things. This entire piece, just to summarize, took us end to end around a quarter. And that's a fairly big change from a user experience standpoint that we envision. It really is, and again, a lot of speakers alluded to this earlier also, was product management is a very subjective domain. I think then the beauty of product management is also that you don't have to do everything for everything, which is where judgment calls will come into place. So this can be accelerated, but you guys will have to take a call on what really makes sense for your stage of the product and organization, but definitely makes sense to refine our ideas as much as possible before we start hitting the market or the development phases. Okay. And I'm going to end by contradicting myself completely, and I'm taking a big risk here. Thank you, 30 seconds for me. Is that while I've given you all the wisdom and the gyan of using the Bira framework, we fundamentally as product managers need to take risks. We need to move fast. I love this quote from Richie Norton, who says, life's just too short not to try something stupid. So guys, be courageous and move fast. Cheers. Thank you.